Hi, I'm Julie McCord, author, and first I would like to apologize for any glare you're going to get off of my glasses, like so. I've tried a bunch of things and there's just not really a way around it because of the way the light from the screen interacts with them. And if I take them off, I won't be able to see well enough to read to you, which is what I'm planning to do today. So we're left with this. What I'm going to be reading is a couple of pages from Torch of the Defiler, which is the first book in a setting called The Devourer, which I originally published a few years ago. But what happened was this. You know how Tolkien, when he wrote Lord of the Rings, he handed it all in as one book. He said, "This is one book. It's so beautiful. You can have the whole thing right now." And his editor came back to him and said, "No, no, sweetie. It's really good, but you've already divided it into 6 sections, so maybe we should use that to make a few smaller volumes that can be held in the human hand." I needed that editor because I was excited to give you the whole story at once, and I ended up producing this, which is lovely. It's a lovely cover by Katrina, and it had the whole story in it, and it was this big. And so, while it is convenient to have the whole story at once, it's maybe not the book you want to take on the bus with you. So, now that I have a new editor, the wonderful Carmen Garrison, we are revising the whole story and republishing it with lots of nice stuff besides just the re-edit itself, which makes it extra shiny and sparkly and easy to read. It's going to be reformatted. We have new cover art. We have some appendices that we're adding, and a whole new book worth of material that's going to get stuck into the middle. And so this is all very exciting. And it starts with Torch of the Defiler, which was the first section of The Devourer. So what is going to be going on in this scene is that one of our main characters, Eric, our human, has gone into the elven forest and he's being introduced to the culture. And so he's attending this theater event. It's ritual theater depicting one of the creation myths of this world. So that's what I'm going to be reading as soon as I get the page behaving. Here we are. Although the forest never completely receded from any gathering place of the elves, it was in the background here. The wooden stage was very low to the ground and semicircular, ringed by benches. Lauren and Eric took seats in the front, places of honor, Lauren said, although the other elves seated in the front were a handful of children. Along the back of the semicircle were musicians, some with flat handheld drums, some with drums that were long and tall and played with sticks resembling crooks, others with harps, flutes, and various other instruments that were harder for Eric to identify. Censers were lit at either end of the stage, and Lauren gestured that the performance was about to begin. It began with a cacophony of drums and gongs and dancers running in disarray, swarming over the stage. Abruptly, the noise fell silent, and the dancers collapsed to the floor. Lauren had explained that this dance was about the creation of the world, so he was able to deduce that the 3 dancers who slowly rose to their feet in the silence were the gods. To his right was the one who was playing Gwaran, dressed in red and gold. He was stocky for an elf, his movements blunt and precise, and his pale hair was stained reddish-brown. To the left was Alarin, a girl of quintessentially elven features, dressed in opalescent green and gesturing delicately with her hands and eyes. In the center, dominating Eric's attention, was Morgan. Morgan's skirts shimmered blue and black and silver, but her blue shirt was cut like a man's. Although this costume was intended to represent Morgan's ambiguous nature, the dancer's gender was clear, for she was more curvaceous than the other female elves. In fact, the strange cut of the shirt only served to draw more attention to this fact. Also unusual was her coloring. Her hair was raven black and appeared to be so naturally. Her skin was pale and her eyes crystalline blue. She was the girl from the pond, and she was beautiful. He watched her step back as the music began again, this time in a more orderly fashion. The melody was strange and wandering by human standards, with rhythms that made no sense. But the result was pleasant enough, despite its foreignness. One by one, under the direction of the three gods, the others arose, performed impossible leaps and turns and flips, then moved into a line around the back of the stage. The ordering of the elements, Eric supposed. Then came the shaping of the world. Guerin took up a staff and strode to center stage. His music was loud and clanging, and he alternated between stomping so that the stage shook, and hitting his staff against the ground, and leaping into aerial somersaults using the staff as a center, and whirling in battle-inspired fury using the staff as a weapon against a host of invisible assailants. The children in the front row winced and held their ears, not only against the noise, but because they seemed afraid of him. It was definitely for the best that Eric had declined the role. Next came Alarin, whose music was soft and lilting, full of harps and flutes and bells. She moved in graceful steps, making delicate, small movements with her hands and smiling gently into the crowd. Two attendants came forward and helped her slip into a rainbow-colored robe they had brought. Out of the bag sleeves she produced sweet-smelling herbs and flower petals and cast them into the audience. The children in the front row went wild. Morgan came forward to the sound of drums, played more sensually than Guerin's, and cymbals, and long strange pipes with nasal voices. Her movements were slow, mournful yet seductive. Her arms and hips swayed and curved like serpents, her long jet hair moving behind her in a single sheet, except for the wisps falling into her delicate face, half hiding her closed eyes. She arched forward, her eyes snapped open to punctuate her flirtatious, knowing smile, and she pulled at her skirts. They fell away around her into a winding scarf, blue and black and sprinkled with dots of silver like stars, leaving only, damn, a simple black skirt to cover the dancer's legs. Majestically, she swept the scarf through the air over her head, sweeping it in spirals around the stage as if she were spreading the sky with her hands, which of course Eric realized was exactly what she was doing. The children in the front row admired her but seemed unsure what to make of her. Her dance was for the older members of the audience. As she retreated, she pulled a dancer all in white from near Alarin and one all in yellow from near Guerin, the moon and sun. They performed a stately paired dance, to which Eric paid substantially less attention. Guerin and Alarin resumed the center stage hand in hand, breaking up the sun and moon. They shared a long embrace, then stepped apart, and beneath their clasped hands swarmed younger dancers, students of ritual theater, Eric imagined, dressed in rags with their hair dyed brown, jumping and howling and pretending to fight. Men, Eric realized, and glanced at Lauren, who scratched at his neck in embarrassment. Now Morgan came behind Alarin and Guerin, taking their hands in her own, separating them. She kissed Alarin, and when the elven goddess stepped back from her, there was a second swarm, these in something very like normal elven garb, in as stately and tender a dance as teens were likely to manage, swirling gracefully to either side. Morgan moved to the other side to kiss Guerin, and from between them came a third group, their hair dyed off black, wearing intentionally mournful faces painted white and blue, their movements strange and apparently symbolic, and howling mournfully. The last of these were moving in a unified line, carrying sticks which upheld a multicolored thick rope, with an ornate head that must have been meant as a dragon. The dragon circled the entire troop 3 times to a flailing of gongs, screaming, then landed at the very front of the stage. And with that, abruptly, the dance was over. So this is a dark fantasy setting. It's got action and romance and horror and all of the things. And I hope that you are going to enjoy it, or enjoy it again if you picked up the Devourer. But I hope that you will pick up the new copy anyway, because there really is going to be some cool new stuff in it. So thank you for listening, and you can get updates about how close we're getting to the release and a preview of the cover art when we're ready for that by following my page on Facebook or my webpage, which is juliemccordauthor.com. Thank you for listening.